And we're back.
We're back.
I have to burp.
We'll bleep that out.
That's what you said last time.
That's what I did say last time. And I really meant to, but I forgot.
Said it too many C words.
See you next Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. So Xavier, what are we going to talk about today?
Today we have a very interesting topic. We're going to talk about fame.
Fame. The rise and fall.
Mm-hmm.
The has-beens. The one-hit wonders.
All types of things about fame.
Mm-hmm.
Is there someone like really famous you admire?
Oh yeah, and I think a lot of people will agree. I feel like every Hispanic little girl wanted to be Selena.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone did. She was one of the first celebrities or people that I thought about that would that like I resonated with because she was Hispanic. I would hear her songs on the radio and you tie it into a movie, so it's like, oh wow, she was a real life person with a story, and everyone thinks that if you do the washing machine in front of the beach, that you're gonna be famous like her one day. Like if you just do that,
Like that's the key. Like, all right, we're taking a trip to the beach right now.
yes, because Selena did that, and that's what it is. Another person I really one of the first people. Okay, so I remember asking my mom at one point was, Mom, how come you never took me to LA and like got me to work, or like put me in commercials or something? I asked her that one time, and you know what made me ask her that?
What?
So I still am, but I was really fascinated back in the day with True Hollywood stories.
Yes.
Like the origin stories of it all and everything. And one of my favorite True Hollywood stories, and it's funny because if you were to rewatch it now, they could add so much more onto that story. But it was about Full House.
Oh, yeah.
It was about Full House. It was an True Hollywood story about Full House. And if you don't know how these True Hollywood documentaries work, it was basically like it goes back to the origin stories, how these celebrities grew up, who were their parents, where were they born, what was their upbringing like, did they grow up in a big town, did they grow up in a small town. Then it goes into the work process of it, where it's like they actually had to go out and audition for these things and see if they get it or not, and it's still up in the air. And then they talk about opportunities and missed opportunities, some windows open, some windows closing for certain people. And then it talks about the fame of it all, the startup of it, where it's like we didn't know what this was going to be like, if it was going to be a hit show or not. We just said, whatever, we'll do it. And then you get like the reaction of the response of the people and the audience that they're reaching out to. And that kind of builds off the fame that they get, the fame that they have established, and even longevity of it too. And then from there it goes into like some dark aspect of the story where it's like no, but they're really broken inside. Like the actors or the people who are famous are really broken inside, and they really don't see they are also human too. So it shines light to their humanity, where it's like not everyone's perfect, even though their fame and their picture perfect-esque image is there out to the public. Inside it's like it's far from that, in a sense. And then after that it goes into like a kind of like a downfall. Like the best way I can describe it is like, you know how in English class you had like the plot, like a storyline plot, where it's kind of like a mountain or a, like a mountain. And so like the downfall of it would be like the negativity of fame, the attention and stuff kind of like backfiring on the person. And then it would go into resolution where it's like, oh no, but it got over that. It was just a phase. They were canceled for a second, but then it was just a phase, and then it kind of just like unwrinkles itself out. But yeah, Full House was one of the True Hollywood stories I really resonated with. I remember telling my mom, like, why didn't you her real name in real life is Jodie Sweetin, Stephanie from Full. She was the one person I always thought about where it's like, I wish I was her when I was young. I wish my mom took me just like her mom took her to go audition and stuff. And my mom was just like, no, like we didn't, like what for, like there's no career in that. There's no longevity in that. So yeah.
Joke's on you, Rose. She's still on TV. Fuller House.
That's what I was saying. I was like, you can add so much more onto that True Hollywood story. Like they talked about like Bob Saget and like his dirty jokes and shit, and David Coulier and John Stamos, fucking everyone, and allegedly.
Allegedly.
So, but yeah, like that was one of the True Hollywood stories about fame and the rise and falls of it that really I resonated with a lot, and I really enjoyed. It's a really good story.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Like someone I
admired.
There's a lot of people I admire. Like, I mean, there's so many musicians that like I aspire for the careers and stuff from, like someone like Rex Orange County or Lady Gaga, Boy Pablo. I look at Billie Eilish too, and I think she's such an interesting person because the cool story about her is, sort of her first big like hit. I think she was only like 13 or 14 when she put out Ocean Eyes, and this past year she did something that's like incredibly hard to do with the Grammys, is to win every major category. Like the top 4, you have Best New Artist, you have Record of the Year, Song of the Year, and then Album of the Year, and she won all 4.
Damn.
And that's I'm pretty sure someone else has done it, but it's really, really hard to do. Like you can only ever do it once because you can only get Best New Artist once, and she did it. And I think it's so cool because, when you get a record deal and you put out your record, you go and you work with all these producers and they make all this music, and you go into the studio, like a big expensive studio that costs thousands of dollars, and you start making your record. And for her it was like she was like, no, I'm gonna sit in my bedroom. She tried it and it was fine, but it was like, I've made all these songs with my brother in our bedroom growing up. And so we're just going to go back home and use the same computer we had, the same microphones, and we'll come back at the end of it and like, here you go, record label. Like, here it is. And so I think that was so cool to be like, they controlled their fame, and what they did was like, no, we're going to own this thing and it'll be our art. And I much prefer being an artist, and I much prefer artists rather than like celebrities.
You think it's because of the authenticity of it all, or what would you say?
I think that's a big thing of it. It is authenticity. You look at back in the 90s and even beforehand, a lot of, well, there were exceptions of course, but like I think you saw in the 90s and the early 2000s, a lot of it was manufactured pop music. People wrote everything for them. You had bands were formed. You look at NSYNC or the Backstreet Boys. They didn't come together like naturally. Just like, we're going to pick you guys.
What's his name? Lou Pearl.
Oh, like their manager or something? Yeah, that guy. There's a documentary on it. I think it's on Hulu or something.
Yeah.
Watch it.
YouTube Originals. One or the other.
But watch it. That thing's messed up.
He liked to touch peepees. He did.
And
allegedly.
But getting back to it, it's like, yeah, everyone was manufactured, and like it was just like the music industry looked at people like products. Like we can sell you if we make you blonde and blue eyes. All these millions of people will buy stuff from you. It will make money off of it. But I think in the past decade, you had a really big resurgence of songwriters and people who made stuff like Bruno Mars and Kesha. Like they wrote songs, and Lady Gaga too. Like they wrote songs for other people first, and then finally, like, hey, can I finally make my own music now? And they did.
I think BB Rexa too.
Yeah, she did too, which is a really big practice that like you'll have these people who are big now, but behind the scenes they were writing other people's hits and stuff. And finally they're like, no, I'm the songwriter. I'm like the person doing this. Like I wanna put my art there on my own. And so I always think I always admire that much more than just like someone who's just like
who has stuff written for them.
Yeah, not that there can't be like good performers. Like you look at someone like Whitney Houston had an amazing voice. She didn't write every song she sang or something, or either like Adele too. Like she writes a lot of her songs, but sometimes people write songs for her. I think there's something in that, like as a great performer and a voice. But you can just tell like when someone's like trying to make a product and stuff, and like I remember listening to an interview with Lady Gaga one time. She's like, I've seen so many like young people come in the studio one time and work with one producer and think I'm gonna be the biggest thing in the world. It's like, no, you got lucky and you did one thing. Who sees what's gonna happen with that? Doesn't mean you've done anything. Like someone just handed you this thing.
Right. Yeah. The artistry, I think, of it all is lovely. I agree with you because it's like they put in the work. That's not to say actors aren't. I think actors, it's an art itself, you know, like.
I agree.
Actors, it's an art itself. The one person I was skeptical at first, but has grown on to me. There's two people. It's more of like an empire, I would say. But definitely the Kardashian Jenner. That mogul. I don't know how to say that word.
Mogul.
That mogul, that industry. Heck yeah. Like that one I know for a fact. Like at first it's like, oh, it's going to be it's a come and go. It's a trend. It's a fad. It's very like, they're going to be gone within like a few months. People aren't going to know who the fuck they are, let alone next year, you know? And I almost thought of them as a fad. But in actuality, like, look at how relevant they are today, how much they've influenced today's society, where even if it's like injecting, you know, bad lip fillers, or, you know, getting vampire facials and shit, like, I would say they basically like have made their carbon footprint here on Earth for sure. Like there's gonna be books written about them. For sure. And then another person is Chrissy Teigen. I hated her at first. I didn't like her. I felt like she was just a gold digger, just out for John's money. I'm like, I don't know if I like you or trust you. But she was just she doesn't give a fuck of what people think. She could care less. She will tell you that too. And she's grown to me. She has grown to me. Her fame and who she represents has grown to me. So, yeah.
I think that's the interesting thing. Like, people can take these opportunities they have. Whether, you know, you look at the Kardashians are the prime example, as they had this opportunity to be in the presence of the media and the public, and like, we're going to angle this the best way we can. And they you look at every one of them, the wealth they've amassed, the fame itself, like what they cultivate, like it's so unprecedented to ever do anything like that. Like they are pop culture in the mainstream that way, and it's almost oddly enough a talent in itself to do that.
Right? Like it's respectable. It's like you fucking worked your ass off, even if it is to throw out a sex tape out there. Like, you had to work your angles, girl. Like, I commend you for that shit. Like,
like you hustled for it.
You looked at that certain outlets that get you the best deal. Like, I respect that. You had to make some phone calls.
I like that meme where it's that episode of the Keeping With the Kardashians where like the mom's like, when I heard about Kim's sex tape, as a mom, I was disappointed, but as her manager, I knew what I had to do.
She's seeing dollar signs. A lot of people have done sex tapes, like famous people. Like I think that's like you have to get that check marked off or something.
The really big first one, I think a lot of people would think Paris Hilton, but no. If you're a '90s person, if you think back even further, I'm gonna date myself with this. You think Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee?
Whoa!
So Tommy Lee was in Motley Crue, right? And
yes.
then Pamela Anderson was obviously
boobies.
A really big Playboy model, Baywatch, and everything.
Home Improvement.
That's right. She was in Home Improvement for the first season. People forget that, and she came back for like an episode one time, like later on, and. But no, they had one of the really biggest like first sex tapes that like leaked and everything, and like, and then obviously you had the Paris Hilton, you had Kim Kardashian, and other people like that. Like, it is almost as oddly rite of passage to be like, hey, you're in this club, kinda.
Yeah, it's like. And I think like only people that have done that have gone through that will only know what it's like. I was listening to, I think it was the one with I'm not sure if it was Joe Rogan or Dax Shepard, but I know it's Rob Lowe. He was being interviewed and they were talking about his sex tape. I was like, he had a sex tape?
It was very controversial.
And he's into, yeah, I didn't know that at the time either. But he had said that he had to be on SNL at some point in that week, and it was like when his sex tape was coming out. But it turns out like, that's the neat thing about experiences and kind of gigs. It's like you're setting yourself up for the trajectory of where your career could go. He had to like basically like, and this is hard, but like have no reserves about mentioning the sex tape on live television for millions to watch. He had to be very open to and receptive to the fact that like, people think things, like allow them to have like their moment of, bombarding you with questions and stuff. And he did that, and then he ended up like that ended up opening doors for him too, because that made it seem like, oh, you can laugh at yourself. Like, if you don't have a problem laughing at yourself, like 3 more doors open for you, dude.
And I remember hearing that pod. I think it was with Dax Shepard. I remember that one, and that's always if you can take a laugh at yourself too. I think you help. Oddly fight against it. It's like you take away some of the power. Like, yeah, look at this ridiculous thing that happened. Yeah, let me laugh about it with you guys for a second. It'd be stupid not to, because it is odd, it is ridiculous, but yeah, and it's so funny because Rob Lowe was such like a different. He's had so many ups and downs in his fame and stuff, because now we think of Rob Lowe like he's like a dad. He's matured. We know him in Parks and Recs. We he's such a household name, and not that he was The Outsiders, and not that he wasn't in the 80s as well, but like young Rob Lowe in the late 80s and the 90s, he was like he was trouble. He was wild. He was like you didn't want to like date him because he was like, he's just gonna,
he's damaged.
he was all kinds of stuff. And but it's so funny because now he's like, oh, who doesn't love Rob Lowe? But back then he was like, he's the bad boy. Like, you kind of want to stay away from him.
Or not.
Or not.
But yeah, like that's the fame that, or the persona narrative that was drawn to him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that happens with a lot of people, because I think they kind of attach, like the media or just in life in general, like they attach this narrative to you, or this narrative, or what you are, they attach it to you. Miley Cyrus was talking about it recently when she was talking to Joe Rogan. She was talking about that, how she tried so hard to fight that narrative, to prove that she wasn't crazy and prove that she was anything but this narrative that they're putting out, because it wasn't her, you know. But then Joe was just like, why the fuck are you doing that? You're just as, like, it's gonna, like, you know, it's not true. Isn't that good enough for you, you know? And it gave her something to reflect on and stuff. But she even admits that it's hard to process things when people are telling you you are this way, when it's like, well, no, you don't know me, you know? And then she was even feeling guilty. She all in all feels guilty about how everything came out, like how everything is for her in her life. She feels guilty for being rich. That's literally what it is, for having money. And when you have money, you're in control. So she feels guilty for being rich. And Joe was just basically like, well, you didn't choose that life. You were a kid. Like, what? When you're a kid, you make decisions and you don't know the outcomes of it, you know, come 5-10 years from now. And he was basically kind of like being like, dude, like, don't be so fucking hard on yourself. Shit happens. And I think maybe celebrities need to hear that more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's so easy to kind of be like guilty with that, and like I guess get it, because it wasn't like she earned her own money and everything, like with her own talent, but she was born rich. Her dad's Billy Ray Cyrus. She was wealthy already coming off of it, and like you said, it was like she's like, everyone else wanted to control the narrative, who she was and how she's acting and stuff. And it kind of reminds me of this kind of quote Lady Gaga said, because she had this song called Do What You Want. Do What You Want. And she explains the meaning behind it is like, everyone thinks that I'm very like vapid pop star. And then I act really weird, I wear funny clothes, and I sing pop music. And she's like, if that's all you want, that's fine. She's like, because in the song she goes, you can't have my heart and you can't have my mind, but do what you want with my body. So what she's saying is like, if that's all you want, go ahead, you can take that. But for the people who really want something, like, you'll get it. But if that's all you're willing to get, then like, I'll give you just a bare minimum. I'm not going to put my art and the things that I want to make out for just anyone. Then I'll keep that for the real people.
Damn. I felt that. Lady Gaga. Yeah. And I think over the years, I think the Kardashians have learned that. Have learned to like kind of how to develop that art. I think what they're doing is like, it's an art. It is an art, and it's maybe an art that didn't exist, but it's like it's like a new invention per se. And because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, or let me know your take on it, but I felt like in the beginning they were super fake. They were funny and witty and shit, but a lot of it was more like for the tabloids and stuff. And as social media and how the delivery of news has evolved, I think that's put a a damper on a lot of celebrities, a lot of influencers back in the day compared to now, where it's like Instagram people get like 1 million for every post of like, you know, of hashtag not sponsored, but like as of like gummy bear natural, the gummies or whatever.
Wait, what are they called?
Halo,
No, Sugar Bear.
Sugar Bear, yeah. So like, you know, compared to that, where and then where it is back then, where you're literally selling your pictures to the tabloids and stuff, like it's gone a whole different route. So I think that the Kardashians have really created this art where it's like they have to be more real, because they know realness and trueness and seeing their flaws is what's gonna get, one, the views, and two, it's what's gonna get that that pathos with the people. So there's 3 forms of persuasion. I don't know if you remember, like in literary class and stuff.
Vaguely.
It was I think it's Greek. It's like pathos, ethos, and logos.
Mm-hmm.
So pathos is like sympathy, like connection with the people, like kind of making them like the sob story in a sense. Ethos is more like the ethics of it, like right and wrong, and morality of it all. And logos is like the logic of it, the kind of common sense of it all, and how it ties into everything. And I think the Kardashians have really played over the years into the pathos, and they know that's what's gonna get the buy-in and the trust of the viewers to have the longevity of this fame, of this mogul in a sense.
Mm-hmm. I get you, because I would agree that in the beginning I watched those like first 2 seasons of Keeping with the Kardashians were really funny. I actually really liked them.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. But as it continued on, they definitely made it more like a solid look inside of their lives, and they've hustled everything to. I remember they were on a Barbara Walters interview back in the day, in the first couple of years of them being an entity, and she was like, "You guys are essentially famous for nothing." She's like, "What do you do? Like, what do you actually do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are we giving you all this attention?
Mm-hmm.
You don't sing, you don't
Mm-hmm.
act. At the time, you don't have any products to say. It's like, what are we?"
Like they didn't probably have like the lipsticks or the
There was
Skims
at
or
that time there
anything
was
like that.
nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like, she's like, why did we put you here?
Yeah.
What was the reasoning for that?
Ooh.
And at the time, they really couldn't give quite an answer, because it's like, they're like, well, you know, we're entertaining, we're a family, and we're showing this off, and it is true. But at the same time, it's like they didn't have necessarily something to back it up with. Now they've taken that opportunity, they've created wealth, and they've multiplied it, and they have like legitimate things. You look from Kendall, who Kendall's like my favorite Kardashian. Now, she's technically Jenner, but you know, of the
Mm-hmm.
clan, because like she's a model and she hustles, and she's like, I do this, and you have Kylie, who's created, same with Kim, like these great cosmetic empires too, and they've written books. Like they all have created something worth of value now
Right.
that they back up. That's like, yeah, I have a brand, but I have something to give to you back. But what do you think about the idea of like fame, sort of in and of itself now, like being a commodity in a career? Like I'm talking about like a 16-year-old at home, a 15-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just get on TikTok and I'll be famous, right? What do you think about that?
The first thing that was gonna come out of my mouth, I'm like, they probably didn't think it through. That's the first thing. They didn't think it through. And what follows is with kids it's trickier. And we've seen this is like the old, it's like an old archetypal story of the childhood star, the basically troubled childhood star that, you know, has had hardships and stuff and has gone through shit and maybe has dabbled into and experimented with drugs and alcohol and stuff. Like take Rob Lowe or even Drew Barrymore. you know.
I love Drew Barrymore.
So like, you know, even Jodie Sweetin from Full House, she was a meth addict, you know. And so I'm not saying these TikTok stars are going to be that, but I just don't think that they thought it through becoming famous. But then I also think that wasn't their intention. That wasn't their intention to do that. Most of them don't intend to do that.
I actually kind of disagree with that. I think you see most of them, when you scroll through TikTok, you see a lot of people making the comment, I'm going to keep reposting this until I get famous, until this gets a lot of views.
Maybe that was their intention. I don't have TikTok. Maybe that was their intention then.
And you see people, because I'll scroll through TikTok, I do have it, and frequently I see a lot of people saying, I'm going to repost this a third time until finally I get the recognition for it. This is my 5th time reposting the same video because it didn't get enough views, so now I'm going to do it again. Or this person said, hey, I made this video, but someone uploaded it and they got 1 million likes. Well, mine has 5,000. So I'm going to keep posting it again. And they go there and purely for that, for clout, for attention. And I just see a lot of them where it's like, again, like in the early days of the Kardashians, like I'm waiting for them to back it up with their talent. Like, what are you going to do that's like going to keep you there? Because you can get attention for being young and a good looking kid. Like 1 million people do that all the time. No problem. But like, are you gonna sign up with a model agency and like hustle and like book gigs? Are you gonna like play an instrument? Like, what are you gonna do to?
Yeah.
Because a great example I think about, I don't know if you remember, Luce, is Alex from Target.
Oh, like the meme guy?
Yeah, and back in the Vine days, everyone was like, oh, he bagged my groceries when no one else would. And because some girl took like 3 pictures and posted them on Twitter, everyone wanted to know who this kid was. He was on Ellen because he's like, everyone's obsessed with you. Who are you?
Right.
And he's like, I'm 16 years old. I'm from my hometown and I work at Target. I actually had to quit my job because everyone kept showing up to see me. They put me in the back and that didn't stop them. So, yeah, I'm not really working there anymore.
Fuck.
And this is one of those scenarios where he wasn't asking for it. He wasn't.
Yeah.
He didn't intend anything. And
I think that's what I was getting at too, about like people going viral. Maybe there's like a portion that don't intend to.
Yeah, there's those scenarios like that with him where like he didn't ask for it, and it was such a funny scenario because he got handed this bizarre platform that almost no one does. It's like, we're gonna give you, the world wants your attention, and we gave it to you, and he's like, what do I do with it now? Because he wasn't expecting it, and so he's like, he made a couple of vines with like big viners at the time, but other than that, he was like, hey, I think I might want to do acting maybe. I'm gonna start a YouTube channel. Who knows? I think I'm gonna try singing too. Ultimately, none of that happened. Actually, he kind of just fell off of it, and I think it was because like he didn't ask for it. So he's like, I was so unprepared. What do I do now?
Whoa. When you were talking about that, where it's like people go on this up and up like right away, and for example, that Target guy, it reminds me of like fast food, or this quote from Jordan B. Peterson, which is, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. So, and that goes back to the whole longevity of it all, of a career, of the fame of it all and stuff, and keeping it up. Like where I was going at with fast food, it's like, you're gonna eat junk food, you're gonna, have this bag of Cheetos and stuff, but is that gonna sustain you? Is that going to nourish your body? Is that going to keep you awake? Is that going to, it does taste good, but will it satisfy you for a long period of time? Is it going to nourish your body? Are you going to Or are you just gonna crash? Are you just gonna, it's gonna be a quick fix, and then it's gonna even have you be more dehydrated than what you started? And I've used this analogy before, where it's like where someone desires just a glass of water, but people keep feeding you or offering you maybe some alcohol. But water isn't, we need water to survive. The human being can't survive without water, unless then like we start fucking going downhill past 24 hours. But in reality, we can sustain, I think it's between 48 to 72 hours without water. And if someone keeps offering you this alcohol, you guys, it drains, it sucks the life out of you. It's fucking good. It's a good time. Hell yeah, it's a good time. But it literally dehydrates you. So if you're gonna be drinking something that is gonna suck the life out of you, or it's going to just make you thirstier than you did before, like what's the point?
Exactly. What's the substance to it at the end of it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is it worth it? Was it worth all the hype? Was it worth all those girls coming to Walmart seeing Alex, or the damn Daniel guy? I think about that. The damn Daniel, that guy.
I love that meme.
There were some good looking guys.
And that was, even they were on Alan. She's like, hey, Daniel, I gave you all the Vans you wanted. And it's the same thing. Like, it was a funny little video. They weren't trying to make it anything more than that.
They were just like, we're having fun with this. We'll see where this goes and stuff. And yeah, like, I think fame, do we all want it? I used to answer yes, but there's a portion that might not want it, right?
Yeah, it's, what was it? I can't remember if I was in high school or where, but I remember people talk, I think we had some talk about the fame, but people were talking like, yeah, I don't want to be in front of millions of people. I don't want that attention. I don't need them to know everything about me. And there's some people who are perfectly fine with, just being themselves, not on the public platform in any way. Like, that's not what they're looking for. It's like, I'm perfectly happy being, the local, butcher at home. I don't need to be an actor.
Mm-hmm. I think that, and then they're content with that. Yeah,
they're content. It's like, it's not like, I don't need that to fill me up.
They're just like, no, this is what I want to do. Or it's funny how normal even famous people are. I don't know if I'm not speaking from experience, but I would think they're pretty normal. They have their own like curtain too.
Mhm. And I think one of those examples is another Lady Gaga reference, because she has a Netflix documentary. Like, it was like the most like humbling thing I saw about her, because she was just like really exposed, vulnerable. Like, she's like, oh, I'm a mess right now. Here's all my flaws and stuff. Like, I'm fighting with my fiance. Here's, it was, you saw like, oh, she's not this bizarre person who has a new wig on every day or something. She's just a girl from New York who likes to sing.
Which goes back to her quote where it's like, do what you want with my body, but
you can't have my heart and you can't have my mind. Mm-hmm. But do what you want with my body.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, they're fair. I feel like they're fairly normal. I think the only one that isn't is Donald Trump. He's quite a character,
isn't he?
Yeah.
What does, I guess, what is fame for you, Luce? Like, what is
fame?
Could you handle fame? Would you want it? Like, or what does it mean to you to be famous too?
I used to want it because I almost felt like I always had this like inkling of recognition. Like since I can remember, I've always liked recognition. Someone saying like you did a good job, and I'm noticing that. Like that is like a real positive reinforcement for me since I was little. Since I was in elementary school, whenever we had assemblies for awards, like I could tell you kinder, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, like all those years where we had assemblies, like I'd get this anxiety, this angst and nervousness just sitting there waiting for my name to be called, because I knew I was going to get something. I knew I was going to get honor roll or perfect attendance or some other award, you know, and just that angst and anxiety. I remember my hands would get really clammy and sweaty and stuff, and then I would just get really excited. And I think that's the closest thing I've ever gotten to fame. I am not lying. I think that's what it is. But yeah, if I could amount fame to that, it would be in that moment. That's where I felt famous and stuff. And
like this. Mm-hmm.
And I think that plays into like a lot of how I am today, where it's like I know that a thing for me is recognition. Someone saying, look, I know you did a good job, and just know I saw that. Like, and it's not in the form of one payment or anything materialistic back. Like, that's not me. It's more of like, I'm noticing you. How about you? I'm curious.
No, I want fame in the sense of not like a vapid recognition, or I don't want it because I had a random viral TikTok or something. It's the same way with you with recognition. Like I want to be famous because I was really good at what I did. Like I wrote an awesome book that people relate to and love, or I put this song together that resonated with someone. Like I want it to be like things of value, and I like, again, I think back to the quote. It's like you can't have my heart, you can't have my mind, but do what you want with my body. Like I want to give you something real.
Yes, and over the years, I think I've came to find out like that's what's the longevity of it. That's like kind of like the secret formula of that, like the Krusty Krab. And I think that, like for example, like in Arco or something, whenever we had to give talks, it's not for the sense of like I want to be remembered and I want my talk to be no, that's not it. That's not fucking it. For me, it was about. It's like if someone got anything out of like a sentence that I said there, I felt okay. And if they didn't, I just know like putting it out to the universe, that even was okay in itself. Like that's my own little form of, not really fame, but that's like my form of recognition, or you know, like just being heard. Like
just the satisfaction that comes with fame. It's like that's what you're looking for ultimately. Like I put something worthwhile that someone took to heart, something really well. I agree with that too, because I think the same way about like when I get like a talk for groups and stuff like that, where I want to do like I want talks, and I want the platform, not because I want to be in. Well, I actually like being in front of everyone.
You're good at it, Xavier.
I love big crowds. I love them. The first time I ever had to like sing in front of people, I was like a freshman, and it was in my choir, and I was so nervous, my legs were shaking.
Really?
But then after that, I was never nervous again because I really wanted it, and I remember one time I did something at the college where like I had to perform, and I looked out and I was just slightly disappointed. It's like, oh man, I was really hoping there'd be like way more people.
Oh.
It's just because I love a big crowd, because like energy, and I want to put on a good show for people, and I want to do something like fun, and I like that. Not that I don't mind doing it in front of a small crowd. We've had retreats with 10 people in them. You got to get used to it. But like I enjoy. I have no stage fright whatsoever. I love being up there.
When I first started cheerleading, I was like a freshman year in high school. I was nervous at first too, but it's like, nope, you just gotta go out there and just do it. Like, I think back, I'm like, I did that. I was like out there in the freaking football field, or like in the track, and then like every time your name gets called, you have to like do a high kick or something like that. And I think back, I'm like, wow, I did really do that. Or I think back and remember how when you go out and do something, you don't really think about it to begin with. It's just something that like, okay, you're gonna do, you're told to do. You're really literal about it. And then I think over the years, that's when you start forming like your own sense of like autonomy and decision making, and how you're gonna play things out and tweak things and alter things, and just to make it more personalized and more digestible to people. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know what I think is an interesting thing of fame, going back to the idea of like products and stuff, is when we watched a documentary about this together, Luz.
Ooh.
Is Mr. Brainwash.
Mr. Brainwash, I knew it.
Fucking knew it. His story is very interesting.
Exit through the
gift shop.
Yeah.
Like, it's because his whole thing is based off the idea of fame, of notoriety.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who don't know, look up that documentary, Exit Through the Gift Shop. It's really good. It's quite fascinating.
When I first told you about it, what was your thinking? You're like, what's
I don't want to watch a fucking documentary. Can we put on like Awkward or something?
I was like, no, Xavier. I was watching this. I was like, I really think that at first I didn't think you'd be into it, but I'm glad that like you got into it.
No, I did, because it really was fascinating. I think it's another whole take on fame, because the short of it is, for those of you who haven't watched it.
And I tried not to give it away too.
Uh-huh. And basically, I can't remember what his name, but his artist name that he goes by is Mr. Brainwash. Basically, he was this guy who didn't make a lot of money, and he basically got into street art. He was just purely a viewer of it. He enjoyed it, and he was like, I want to talk to them. I want to ask them questions. I want to film them. I want to film their art. Like, I'm a fan. So he did it. He talked to a bunch of people, right? Filming them, talking to them, collected a lot of stuff. And then finally there was like this guy, a really Banksy, who's an incredibly he's like the guy for street, art and performance art. And his whole thing is like, no one knows who I am. Like, which is a funny take on fame, because he's I want my recognition. I want my art to stand in front of me, and I want to be in the back. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an interesting concept, how he tackles it. And so that's his whole thing. Even in the documentary, he's like blurred out, and you can't tell his voice has changed. Like, you can't tell who he is.
His voice is it's disguised and stuff.
And so basically, Mr. Brainwash gets a hold of Banksy, and Banksy was like, yeah, I think it'd be a good idea that you film me. Because Mr. Brainwash was like, I'm going to make a documentary. Like, oh, cool. Because, Banksy was like, my art gets destroyed sometimes before enough people even see it. I probably want to archive it somehow. So actually, yeah, film my process. I trust you. You'll do it. So they spent months doing it. And then Banksy was like, can I see it now? And so Mr. Brainwash put together the most incoherent mess of a film, and Banksy was like, this guy is not a filmmaker at all. He's crazy. And so he was like, you know what you should do? You should try making art.
Yes.
And he's like, and also just give me the tapes. because he's like, I want my movie. I'll edit it myself. I know he has the raw film. Just give me the damn things. So just basically, it was to distract him. Like, well, you go, I'll make my movie while you go fuck around with some spray paint.
Right.
And so he's like, all right, I'll do it. And Banksy had such a big, right beforehand had a big controversial, I'm spoiling the whole thing for you. Either way, the whole point was at the end of the movie, Mr. Brainwash, like, I'm going to take on the name Mr. Brainwash. I'm going to throw a big exhibit. And I'm going to, by the way, this guy's never done anything before. He just off the bat, okay. And he gets away with it. He does it.
He's been following around other street art people. And a lot of street art people are like, they're accepting of him because he's a videographer. He's basically documenting everything, and that was an unheard of thing. It was an unheard of art back in the day. Think the 90s. That's like, yeah, people videotaped and stuff, but like there was no David Dobrik back then. He was basically a David Dobrik back then, or what's the other guy, the one that has the GoPro on his chest. Casey, yes.
Casey Neistat or something, yeah.
Yes. So he was basically like him back in the day. So no one was doing that. So these street artists were like, well, that's pretty cool. Like, he's actually like, he's kind of like, you know, documenting what I'm doing and stuff. So it'll play some form. It might not give me fame right now, nor maybe that's not my intention to have fame right now, but it's almost like a pocket, in a sense, a pocket in a memory that we can store for later references. And he was doing that. And so a lot of people didn't want him around, but just because he had a camera, and it's like, you're willing to do this one extra step, yeah, we'll bring you along for the ride and stuff. But he was no real artist. The only art was his videos. And when it came to the respectability, and when Mr. Brainwash was like, hey, you guys do street art? I think I'm gonna do street art too. Like, was the crowd accepting? No, they weren't really accepting of it. And I don't want to spoil the rest of it either, but
I mean, if you look him up now, I'll spoil a little. He's a big artist. He is now.
Yeah.
But just like you watch the whole thing, I was like, I don't know how this is gonna turn out. It's like, it's looked like everything's falling apart, and I have no clue. And just watch it. But now he is an artist, and it's just he even had a whole series where he painted something with the Pope to auction off for charity. He made an album cover for Madonna for her greatest hits, and like it's very interesting because in short, he projected that he was already famous. That's the short of it. A guy who's nothing, and he used the notoriety of everybody else to essentially say, I'll be famous too. I'm already famous. That's I guess his scheme in essence.
And you know what it makes me think of? Currency. Money and currency. Because to be honest, like, a dollar bill is only a dollar bill because we say it is.
We value it.
Because we value it. A dollar bill is only famous because we say it's famous, you know? And is it real value to it in a sense? Like, well, what constitutes as value? Like, what is it about this value that holds reign over other things? In how does this put other things into perspective for you? And in this case, in the Exit Through the Gift Shop, it makes you wonder. It's like at what point is this an artist, or is this like a tag along or a wannabe artist, you know? Like, and do people get into these fads and kind of feed into this fad, you know, and hype up and make this quote unquote dollar bill even more valuable, when in actuality
it's worthless. You think about it, it's so funny with any art form. It's like the public assigns value to it. you will be a hit. It's the very classic Andy Warhol quote. Everyone in the future will be famous for 15 minutes.
Oh, heck yeah.
I think it reminds. There's just like this, almost like a prank someone put. Like this guy was like, "Oh, I have these very exclusive paintings, like a brand new artist," and he was like taking it to big galleries, like, "We'll appraise it this, like, oh, this is worth thousands of dollars," and he's like, the whole joke was it, I just gave a monkey a paintbrush and I let him mess with it. And you guys think they're these deep, abstract things. He's like, no, I just kind of, it's like, joke's on you.
And then it makes me go back to there's this documentary I like to listen to, True Crime Obsessed, and it's this guy and this girl who do this podcast, and they do true crimes, but they also do like just weird documentaries too. And one of them was about this dad who promoted like her daughter, who was like, I think 8 years old or whatever, but she started painting at 3 or something, and she would just do these amazing portraits and stuff. And it's like, how old are you? You're that old and you're creating this? Like, where did you get your gift from and stuff? And in the documentary, as it goes along, you start learning like, okay, well, we want to videotape you like painting this, like, can you paint this for me? And then like the little girl eventually is like, well, actually, my dad paints and stuff, like, and
oops.
And so but you can't say anything, and it just makes you think about that, like, it's like the lie that you're putting off.
It's like, if I can, people love it's so funny because people like these paintings are talented, they're beautiful, and they valued it even more because it came from an unconventional source, a 3-year-old girl. Whereas if the dad had came to promote them himself as, here are my paintings, what other grown man isn't making beautiful portraits? It's hard to get that more, but this is something we can promote. This is something anyone would aspire to.
And I'm not knocking down any art at all. Like, I think art is awesome, but I've always wondered that. I'm like, what makes that one worth so much? Like, why is what is it called? There's a book about it, but like not Paul Revere. That's the British who were coming, but just like a Picasso or a Van Gogh like portrait. Like, what is that? How does that make things? Who just said this is worth this much? I always wondered that.
I think again it goes back to popularity, and I think the thing about art, I think what separates Sanchez. What was it?
Was it Sanchez? Arturo Sanchez.
That's art. But I think there's something that distincts, art in essence of art that's fast food versus arts that's a proper home cooked gourmet meal is discipline. Where
yes,
someone can walk up on the stage of The Voice and say, I think I can sing okay, and I look good, and people can say yes to you. But the sustainability, the true art of it comes from the person who's practiced, who's cultivated their voice, who's spent all the time and the discipline to work on their technique. Like, they're the ones who's gonna prove the test of time and stick it out more, because they're like, I made this my art form. I stuck to it. I disciplined. I trained myself, and I went through the hardships to make it something real, versus like the drive-thru at McDonald's.
Like, very, very quick. I've always thought that too. Like, you have to put the effort and the work in for it to be meaningful and for it to actually hold some form of sustainability and value in it. I think, like, I don't know if I think a lot of home cooked things or a lot of made from scratch things like taste better than a lot of the stuff that's store bought or through the drive through. It depends, too. It depends. There's a balance. But I think we get out of whatever we put in too, and I think putting more meaning into the small things will do make a difference in the long run. I can think of, there's rarely, I don't know if you can think of anyone, but in the industry that does do that, where they put like a lot of detail in the smallest amount of things that they do. Can you think of any?
I think you can look, I mean, my references are all going to be musicians and stuff, or you look at, I mean, Lady Gaga does that too, or what were you going to say?
One. I was Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle's a great example.
He's been, like, when he stopped doing shows out in the public, like when he went on his hiatus, like he was doing random comedy shows like at, you know, like at parks and stuff, and like, you know, doing his own form of comedy, and just he would swing over his little mic set and like just start, you know, talking and conversing. Or even his latest one, he did like in his backyard in Ohio and stuff, like little small things, more personalized, more things close to you. I've been that's one thing I've been tracking this week. This week, I feel like I've gotten more messages, like subtle messages of like, the more things are closer to you, the more control you have, and the more like, the more you're better at the trajectory of things in a way. I was sweeping at Lowe's, and and one of my higher ups was like, "Hey, why don't you use the big mop or whatever?" And I was like, "No, like this small one's fine." And I think the small one let me move faster, but two, it also let me have more control, actually get to the small spaces that I needed, instead of having this big bulky one where it's like, yeah, you can maneuver it, but it's not going to be in the way you really want it, where you intend to go.
You lose like the detail.
Detail. Mm-hmm. And in the end, you're going to have to be doing maybe 2 or 3 more passes versus like the first time that I do it with the smaller broom. You're gonna take maybe some more time in it, and you're gonna have to move your arms more back and forth, but you only have to do one pass out of like the 2 or 3 more passes that you have to do with a bigger one. The 2 or 3 more extra passes that you have to do, it makes me think about natural selection too.
Oh.
How dinosaurs and stuff back then, how birds, like bird dinosaurs, basically if they had a predator or prey come close to them, like they can just fly over whatever their threat was, versus a bigger dinosaur and stuff, they kind of have to tackle it back on. So it's almost that balance. It's like where one species doesn't have an advantage in something, the other one does. Like it balances each other off. Even though you might be short in stature, they have an advantage because they can fly. And this one has they're bigger and they can take down their prey, but they might not be able to move as agile as a bird. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it has its own advantages to sort of be this entity in this respect.
To go ahead and tie it back to the fame thing, they have the ability to more direction in a sense. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think what else I want to add.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you could handle that pressure, like to be like suddenly like you wake up tomorrow and you're in that spotlight all of a sudden, everyone knows your name?
Fuck no.
you have a million followers on Instagram all of a sudden.
No, I'm like I'm very.
Are you a very private person?
I try to be. I mean, if people ask me shit, I'll tell them. But yeah, like I don't think I'd be able to handle that. I get really anxious. I get anxious going to the mall. I get anxious whenever Janet sneezes twice. Like, oh, shut up. But yeah, so I'm like 1 million followers. Fuck that.
Nah.
I'm not a good role model. Don't follow me. Yeah. How about you? How do you think you would handle that?
I think I would handle it okay. I'm a bit of an exhibitionist in that sense, right? I would use again. I would use that platform to be like, hey, if I woke up 1 million followers, like let me promote my art. Let me hustle with it. But I also think that's the part of the job too, where it's like, if I want this, I have to sign up for this. And I think that and not that it wouldn't be hard, of course, yeah, because you'd have everyone hounding you and wanting all these things about you who don't necessarily deserve them.
Right.
Like
you didn't put in the hours.
You want to invade me.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm okay with that. But not that it wouldn't be difficult, but I think I would as best as I can tackle it. Like I would take it as is, 'cause it's like, all right, I get to create what I want to do, and I get to sustain it as a living. And if this is one of the sacrifices I have to make, I get it. But
right.
I do get to do it. So I would, I think I would do okay with it. What do you think about fame and being a role model? Like, what about that? Model? Yeah. Like, do you think if you have a platform, like you have to follow this certain morality? Like, do you have to be a good person? You have to not swear?
You don't have to. That's the thing. You don't have to. We have a bunch of laws here in the United States. One of them is freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want. You have the right to say whatever you want. Yeah, and essentially you have the right to be an asshole. But should you? Is the question. Like, is it like
I mean, I guess my question is, are celebrities or famous people automatic role models? Like because we should box them into this. Yeah, like you're famous, you have to be the role model to my kid. They have to respect you. You have to be nice to them, be a good influence, and something they can aspire to. So don't you ever smoke weed, don't you ever have sex, and don't swear, because you're a role model. I think that they can expect that. People can expect that. But expectations ruin. They do. They ruin. And the best person I can think about is Cardi B. Cardi B is like one of the OGs that's like I'm pretty sure now that she has a kid, she's gotten some, she probably has she's chewed on a lot of things, you know, but it doesn't change her true self. She has stuck by the premise of I'm not saying everybody should be a stripper or whatever, you know, but I am. That's what Cardi's saying. I don't you know, I was doing it for the money and stuff like that, and I needed it and stuff, but I know that's not for everybody. That lifestyle and shit isn't for everyone, you know. And WAP, have you heard those lyrics? Come on. I listened to that song on repeat. Fuck yeah. And but no, and people, they get a lot of backlash from it. They're like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that and stuff. And it's but I think it's the person projecting that on the celebrities and stuff mostly. I really don't think that you should, everyone has free will. And I don't think that it's fair for us to do that to people. Even though we sometimes are like, well, you asked for it, you wanted it and stuff,
is it fair in the end? I don't think so. But who knows?
No, I agree with you in that, and I think it goes back to the idea of censorship. Like, no, you have to cover up this so much. You have to act this way. I think Miley Cyrus is a big example of that too. Back in the day, like she was like, "No, you're Hannah Montana. You're a Disney star. You're a good girl." The whole time she was, her and Demi Lovato were pressuring Joe Jonas, "Come smoke a joint with us." That was a thing. Look it up. Joe Jonas did a whole interview about it. And, she's like, no, I was always this. This has never not been me.
Yeah.
It's just that, like, yeah, I'm on Hannah Montana. I can't necessarily show everything. But, like, as I got older, it's like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I'm just going to express myself more. And I think people want to feel safe and in control. And, like, if they're celebrities, their idols stay in proper lanes and they feel good. But when they do something unexpected or out of like their comfort zone, like, oh, I'm very conservative. How you smoke the joint on stage, my household is never watching you again. Then fine, I don't want your stuff. If people want to hang with me because they like me for what I do and what I put out, then awesome. If not, then oh well, too bad. See you later.
And I think there's a nice story about that with Fame too, where it's like, as I was saying, the whole E! True Hollywood story, like the trajectory and plot line, the storyline of those types of stories, like that's I think the story of like human anyway. Like it's like this rise and then this fall. And then to redemption and like actually coming back up and like, a new enlightenment in a sense. And I think when we meet chaos and when we meet order, which is like the chaos, the debauchery, the Cardi B, the Miley Cyrus of it all, and then the order where it's like, no, you should uphold these values and stuff. Like you shouldn't shoulders, you shouldn't be telling little girls, like, certain things or, showing them how to shake their ass and stuff like that stuff. When those things collide and stuff, that really brings nuance and discussion to the table. And it brings, there's something that happens with that. There's some magic that happens, even though it's like absurd what we're talking about, what these people are fighting about and stuff. It's like, there's something that comes out of it. There's some form of I would say like genesis of it all. There's some form of like enlightenment with it. With some wisdom with that.
I agree.
Anything else?
I think Fame is a very interesting thing, and I think everyone should take it with like a grain of salt and enjoy it too. Enjoy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Don't sometimes, whether it's the artist you like, whether you're in that position and stuff, I think sometimes you can't overanalyze everything. Like just like enjoy. If you like this person, if you like Cardi B, enjoy Cardi B. If you are Cardi B, enjoy being Cardi B. Like life's also it's too short to be dictated by every single person, and you at your heart, what's like what I should be doing and not be doing, and I'm not. Most people have decent nastios. Most people have a good heart at the end of it, and I think sometimes everyone worries about the wrong things.
Mind your business.
Anything else, Lise?
No, I think that's it.
All right. That's it for today, guys.
That's it for today.
Good
night.